I never dreamed the phrase toxic masculinity would become the blade that sliced through the heart of my marriage. Not that I hadn't believed in transformation, in inner work, in peeling back the layers of our wounds. God knows I did. I welcomed it, even celebrated it. But when Claire, the woman I'd loved fiercely for 8 years, locked eyes with me across the kitchen table and declared, her voice a scalpel, "You need to work on your toxic masculinity," something inside me fractured. Not because it wasn't true, not even because it stung, but because it wasn't offered with kindness. It was launched like a missile. Claire had changed. At first, I actually believed it was for the better. She dove headfirst into a tidal wave of self-help books, therapy sessions, online forums, mostly rooted in feminist ideology. I cheered her on. Growth was sacred, wasn't it? But as months passed, her joy of discovery transformed into a judgmental spotlight turned squarely on me. She began handing me diagnoses mid-argument. "That's a trauma reflex," she'd smirk. "You're slipping into dominance again." When I offered to fix a shelf, she rolled her eyes and muttered something about the patriarchy. My love had become antique in her newly curated life. Still, I tried, because I loved her. I didn't want to be some stubborn relic, clinging to outdated versions of manhood. So I leaned in. I enrolled in therapy. I devoured every book she handed me. The Will to Change, No More Mr. Nice Guy, Attached. I journaled until my hand ached, excavating old wounds, sobbing with my therapist as I unearthed the bones of my past, my father's emotional vacancy, my mother's silent grief. The way I mistook predictability for love. I peeled back everything. I thought, perhaps foolishly, that if I evolved, she would see me again. But she didn't. She turned colder, more distant, detached. Sex disappeared. Conversations morphed into monologues. When I opened up about my growing anxiety, she'd shoot back that it was evidence I hadn't done enough work, that I was needy and emotionally underdeveloped. Apparently, real masculinity meant sitting silently in the pain of being repeatedly dismissed by the woman you love. It wasn't just psychological warfare. It felt like a spiritual ambush. Yet I stayed. I fought for us. I convinced myself that this is what real transformation looked like: ugly, raw, uncomfortable. I believed I was fighting for the U.S. we could still become. But she had already invested hers in someone else. I found out by sheer accident. Isn't that always how these things go? One Saturday, she left her laptop open. Seemed innocent enough, but her Gmail was up. One draft email, unopened, stood out. Subject line: "I wish he'd never find out." My chest caved in. I clicked. It was a letter. Not for me. It was for Elliot, a name I vaguely recognized. Another artist. One of the guys in her new activist circle. She once called him emotionally intelligent, someone full of nuance. "I love you," she wrote. She rhapsodized about the liberation she felt wrapped in his arms. How I was emotionally suffocating and masculine in the way that drained her soul. She described our marriage like a brittle leaf pressed between pages, once alive, now preserved, lifeless. She ended it with, "Forever in softness, Claire." I didn't confront her immediately. I couldn't. My body felt numb. I printed the letter, read it over and over, and every memory came rushing back. Every insult disguised as insight. Every cold glance framed as growth. It wasn't me who was toxic. I was being edited out of the script for someone more aligned with her new storyline. When I finally confronted her, face to face, I didn't scream. I just placed the printed letter on the table. She didn't flinch. If only she had denied it. cried something. You weren't emotionally safe, she said. He is, I scoffed. You mean he listened while you flirted? He sees me. I saw you too, I said, my voice cracking. Guess I didn't match your new rebrand. She turned her back on me, like I was a faith she'd outgrown. I packed my life the next morning, left behind our apartment, my clothes, my books, my guitar, and the man I used to be. The fallout was eerily quiet. No yelling matches, no custody battles. We didn't have kids, just a silent implosion of everything I had once called home. I moved in with my brother, kept going to therapy. But the purpose shifted. It wasn't about fixing myself for someone else anymore. It was about reclaiming the man she tried to dismantle and discard. And then it hit me. She never wanted a better version of me. She wanted an entirely different man, someone who fit her new aesthetic, her awakening. But I wasn't a curated persona. I was real. I was flawed. I was human. The irony? A few months after I left, a mutual friend told me Claire and Elliot had broken up. He was emotionally available, except when rent was due. Eventually, his high-frequency masculinity became another burden. Same script, different co-star. If someone didn't give her everything, they were toxic. I still go to therapy, not because I'm broken, but because healing is a process, not a destination. I've started dating again, slowly, carefully. I've met women who don't talk to me like I'm a walking emotional pathology, who don't weaponize healing to excuse betrayal. Women who understand that masculinity isn't aggression, it's the quiet strength of showing up when it's hardest. Claire once told me I needed to sit in my discomfort. Well, I did. I sat in the wreckage of our marriage, in the echo of her abandonment. I sat in the silence she left behind, and I stayed there until I found my own voice again. And I rose, not flawless, but whole. She told me to do the work. I did, but not for her, for me. Now I finally understand the difference between shame and transformation, between closeness and control, between being seen and being judged. She labeled me toxic, but in the end, it wasn't my hands that poured poison into the glass labeled healing. It was hers, the end.